Thank you very much for your time. Maybe you can shortly introduce yourself for our visitors.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lennart Sas. I'm director at Triumph Studios. Most recent game is Age of Wonders Planetfall, we're talking about today.
Yeah, Age of Wonders, a series which is well known. What is, let's say, the new thing about Planetfall for the audience who is not familiar already with Age of Wonders?
Well, we've taken the classic formula, meaning the strategy gameplay mixed with tactical battles, to a sci-fi universe. It means a whole new arsenal of weapons to play with, ranged weapons, for example, tanks, mechs that you can kit out with modules in order to improve their abilities. So there's a big change in the combat, ranged mechanics, cover, overwatch and that sort of thing. But at the same time we've taken the opportunity to experiment with a bunch of core features such as the world map gameplay now is centered around sectors which you can attach to your colonies as provinces and expand colonies in that way. So it's a new galaxy of opportunity basically for us to improve everything that made Age of Wonders great and take that to the next level.
Okay, you already mentioned it, the previous Age of Wonders were more, let's say, middle-aged themed.
Yeah.
Where comes the approach now with coming up with sci-fi?
Where was the approach? Well, we went for mythological sci-fi. You know, we like the mystery that Age of Wonders always stood for, and so we took a look at mythological science fiction. So Star Wars, Dune, those type of universes where there's a little bit of magic maybe left, and at the same time a universe that's still filled with history. And central to that universe is the Star Union, which is an old galactic empire that once spanned many thousands of worlds. And at the start of the game, that empire collapsed, and all the various factions that once were living there, they evolved in their own unique ways, and brothers and sisters became aliens to one another. When the game starts, hyperspace travel slowly starts to build up again, and these people start to meet and fight over the last remaining planets. There they discover what went wrong with the Star Union, their own faction's history, and they learn how to use the technologies that once were part of that Star Union. So in that sense, it is also a sort of science fiction game that both looks to the future with the research of new technologies, but at the same time also looks back towards the history of the Star Union. So a lot of the tech tree is actually about rediscovering lost secrets of that empire.
Okay. Age of Wonders 3 was already, let's say, mentioning fractions and my personal hero. You already talked about shortly the new fractions. Maybe you can go a little bit more in detail, and how the choosing of my hero affects the way I play the game.
All right. So all of the main factions that you choose in the game have an origin within the Star Union. Even if there's an alien race, it might have been a captured alien race that once was a sort of slave species for the old empire. So when you start the game, you choose one of the 6 main races, and then you choose a secret technology, which is a sort of hidden, secretive, forbidden thing which the empire researches, whether it's biotechnology, whether it's man-machine fusion, or it's a sort of a mass extermination device. And you get to research that, and it's hidden from the other players. But you, as a player, you use elements of technologies first to augment your units, and later you can use that technology to win a tech victory in the form of a doomsday device. Next to that choice, you can also kit your leader out with personal perks. So you can choose positive perks. You can come from a martial tradition, so you're good at fighting yourself with your personal weapons. You can choose to be a pilot, so you can ride a mech or a tank, or maybe a dinosaur, depending on the type of factions that you have. Or you can choose some negative perks to get more points, so you can become decadent, so your people require more food in order to sustain themselves. So that gives a lot of flavor to the empire that you build.
Okay. For, let's say, you shortly touched the Doomsday feature. This means that the kind of way how I can win a game is now improved than to Age of Wonders 3, where just need to conquer the whole map.
Yeah, that was in the base game, yeah. But this game already starts off with a number of victory conditions. So there's the technological victory, the doomsday devices, which are different for each of the secret texts. Basically what you do is you build a number of phases, usually with structures on the map, and you use this particular type of operation, so you launch the sort of finishing thing, that, like the Death Star, or you unleash a virus, that sort of thing. And then there's a period where you need to guard the activation, and then you win. Next to Doomsday, there's a unifier victory, which is a sort of a diplomatic victory where you get chosen to be a planetary governor. Then there is a territory victory. If you hold a particular percent of sectors in the game, you trigger the Domination Victory, so you need to hold that territory for a number of turns. And if you manage to survive towards the end, you win the game as well. And then there's the classic Age of Wonders style, kill the enemy leaders and the capitals to win the game. Yeah.
Okay. Exploring, especially in a planet-wise setting, brings up the question: if let's say, when I start a scenario, do I only explore something on a planet, or do I need to explore more than one planet at the same time? And how does this affect the card size, the map size, and the numbers of players on the map?
All right. So Planetfall is a planetary strategy game. That means that every session takes place on one planet at a time. Space travel is very dangerous after the collapse of the Union, meaning that there's all sorts of storms in hyperspace. That means that only small spacecrafts are able to reach a planet at a time. So the game, a session ends when a planet has been conquered using one of those victory conditions I mentioned. Of course, the campaign strings a bunch of these planetary missions together and has like an overlaying narrative supporting the rediscovery of the Star Union and maybe a new galactic leader. So that's how the campaign plays out.
Will the player, let's say, figure out some linking between Age of Wonders 3 and Age of Wonders Planetfall?
Well, this is its own IP. The Star Union is an empire that is not attached to for example, the Commonwealth in Age of Wonders 3. But the metaverse is a very big place, and there might be some very subtle links, but I'll leave it up to you to discover those.
Okay. I also read a lot of feedbacks to Age of Wonders 3 from the community, where they were complaining about, let's say, the AI setting and how they build up the strategy. How did you improve these scenarios in Age of Wonders Planetfall?
So the AI has seen a massive amount of work, especially the diplomatic AI. They form agendas which differ per character. So they might go for a particular victory condition and they act accordingly to that plan. So they're less predictable than before. There's new ways to interact with those AIs. For example, there's territory conflict. So when you build next to a particular sector and another one, the player does as well, they project a claim towards that sector, and then you need to go to that AI and say like, hey, I have a claim on that sector, but so do you. Maybe I can buy the claim off you, or I can trade that sector for something else. And so there's a whole different layers of AIs that can handle those situations. That there's nowhere near something like that in Age of Wonders 3. So big improvements across the board.
Okay. Maybe you can also just shortly explain us something about the new tier up setting and the mods we can see.
All right. So units, they are divided up into 4 tiers. Like basic infantry is tier 1, while the very strongest units are tier 4. And those are in Planetfall, they're more support units, so like big sort of motherships that can spawn drones for the Vanguard, or like a big terraforming like beast, plant beast for the Amazons, and they buff the other units in the armies. And then those units can all be modded, and I don't mean modding as the traditional sort of Steam Workshop way, but they use modules in order to enhance their abilities. And these modules can come from your tech tree, from NPC factions that you encounter in the game, so you can trade with them. And you can mix and max modules on your unit. So if you have your basic Vanguard Trooper, you can equip him with a jetpack, infect him with a parasite, have armor piercing bullets, or give him a flamethrower. Depending on the enemy that you face, you can create different variants even of that same unit. And that way, even low tier units, they stay relevant towards the end game.
Okay, the release of Planetfall is already in August, so it's really soon. Are there already future plans for the game?
Yeah, we have announced the season's pass. That means that there's going to be expansions. We like to call them expansions, not like mere DLCs. Larger upgrades, packed with features, and they will announce more about that that content and mechanics soon. So it's always going to be a combination of new content, like for example new units, and new gameplay systems that will freshen up the gameplay. But don't worry, the base game is already filled with content, so it should keep everybody busy for hundreds of hours.
Okay. And as e-sport is, let's say, the upcoming topic, have you thought about how Age of Wonders can participate? Example giving, the combat mode seems to be really sufficient if I only would use this part.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an esports component for turn-based games. I mean, it would be the first game, I think. But multiplayer is important to us. We've invested a lot in like how multiplayer works in a game like this. We've added a cloud component. It means that when you play a multiplayer game, we can have a session that stays in the cloud, and when it's my turn, I play a session and you play your turn when you have time. And you just download it from the cloud. But if we happen to be online at the same time, we can switch that game to a live gameplay mode, for example in the weekend, and then we can get 2 hours in and make lots of quick progression. And when the weekend is over, you can switch back into the cloud-based turn-by-turn mechanism. So that's one of the ways that we've innovated the turn-based multiplayer systems. Another thing what we've done is we've made sort of like gamified the battles a bit. So, for example, when I'm in a battle versus an independent, it might take a very long time. So we've added the concept of combat cards, limiting the number of manual combats that I can play during a game. So I need to think very carefully when I choose to manually command a battle. So you reserve those cards only for the very most pivotal battles in the game, and those can be exciting for you to watch as well, of course, because my empire might fall or survive depending on how I play that manual battle.
Okay. Last thing we don't also do. Yeah. Age of Wonders Planetfall will be the first Age of Wonders which will be released on all platforms. Are there also intentions of cross-playing, as you mentioned the cloud gaming?
Well, cross-play is always very complex. There's multiple parties involved, multiple backends involved, so it is something that we won't do out of the box, and we don't have like any concrete plans for it. But who knows, maybe in the future. Okay.
Yeah, well then, thank you very much for your time and effort. Looking forward for the release of the game, and wish you success for the future.
All right. Thank you very much.